Brodes Media.
My first individual prediction would be Kyle Schwarber leads off more than anybody else. And I don't know if that's going to upset you or not. There's actually a ton of buzz about Trey Turner potentially being in the conversation of MVP. Now, I don't really think that that's going to happen. I do acknowledge that he is a superstar, and he's probably even better than what we all remember him as last season because of the struggles and because of how ugly it looked. There was a time where he was the face of the World Baseball Classic. And think about how much talent is on all of these teams. You're talking about superstar everywhere. And Trey Turner was the biggest of them all. He was raking. Now, I don't expect him to hit that amount of home run, have that amount of pop over the long haul here. But there definitely is a notch above what we experienced last season. I'm not going to pretend like that's not true. But MVP discussion is a totally different monster. I'm a little shocked to see it, but I bring that up to you because if that is the case, and he is seriously there, he's 1, 2, 3, the talk of the town is, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Well, then at that point, maybe he is hitting leadoff. I like that. If that's the case, I'm not against allowing him to hit leadoff because I want my best players to get the most at-bats. I'm very simple. And if he's arguably in the MVP conversation, then he's clearly playing at the top of the league, and there's not that many better than him all around the sport. So if he could get more at-bats, then okay. But I don't see that happening. So with that said, I believe Kyle Schwarber should lead off and will lead off more than anybody else. Now, I do want to bring up this stat from Ryan Spader, only because it talks about this a little bit, and he's a big believer that Bryce Harper should lead off every single game, and the way that you should sort of picture a lineup instead of 1 through 9 is 1 through 10. So Bryce Harper bats 1, and then he also bats 10th. And with that, he says, on average, the leadoff spot will come to the plate about 34 more times per season than the 3-hole. So that's roughly 7.5 more games worth of plate appearances. So you'd be getting almost 7.5 more games of Bryce Harper at-bats. Or in my case, Kyle Schwarber at-bats. Or in some old school people's minds, maybe Trey Turner would have 7.5 more games worth of plate appearances. And that's significant. That really is. So I'm on board for it being Bryce Harper, even though it won't be Bryce Harper. I believe Trey Turner's defense improves very, very heavily. All right, so I've read a lot up on a lot of these different individuals and how they've been kind of approaching their off seasons, what they've been working on both sides of the diamond, and it just seems like Trey Turner's way more comfortable with the staff now, and now his boots are in the ground here in Philly, so there's just an understanding of everything from top to bottom with this organization. And last year was a little wonky. It was a little all over the place on the defensive side. I would not be stunned if we get a way crisper and cleaner version of Trey Turner. Now, there's more of a feel of him and Bryson Stott turning 2. You get a little bit more reps involved. You're feeling good about yourself. And by the way, I know we like to pretend like this doesn't happen, but when you suck at the plate, it absolutely impacts you on the other side. I mean, it just impacts the way that you approach the game. And when you're down in the dumps and you're upset and you're sad and you feel down about how you're playing and you know you're letting your teammates down and the fans are sort of on your back as well, so there's added pressure. Home games feel like hostile environments. Prior to the standing ovation, there'd be that angst every time he was up at the plate and a couple of boos whenever something goes wrong. Well, that plays a role, okay? It's very toxic to go to work that way. And now that I'm sure he feels a lot better, he's in a way better place mentally. If he starts off the season really performing well at the dish, I think that absolutely attacks his swag on the defensive side. Maybe we see a little Jeter where it's an insane backhand. He jumps up in the air, he fires it across the diamond. Bryce Harper with an excellent stretch, keeps his foot on the bang, bang play, 45,000 people at CBP Ride. It's the third out of the inning, so the fellas are trotting their way back to the dugout, and you see the fans that are right behind them. Hey, Trey! Here we go, Trey! You know what I'm saying? That's what it's all about. And then Trey starts to really pop off defensively on both sides of the plate, on both sides of the field. And yeah, man, like I think that we're absolutely going to get that. And also Bryce Harper at first base. And I don't want to be skewed because I'm understanding that Rhys Hoskins was the one that previously played first. Because if we were in a situation where the last first baseman we watched was a Gold Glove first baseman, then we'd probably have different expectations for what we could live and die with over there. But because Rhys was just basically a machine that would hit 30 bombs, 100 RBI, but defensively he takes a step backwards to play an awful bounce. He falls back, he falls on his ass, and then a ball rolls to right field, and now the other team's getting an extra bag. Maybe a run scores, and now you have to play catch up, or you were up 2 runs, now you're only up 1, so you're making it more difficult to win a game. All that stuff. It sucked, man. It sucked. But I love Rhys to death. I just actually saw a video of him hitting a spring training home run, and that swing, the way that he knows it's gone, the trot around the bases. I'll miss it. I turned into a big Rhys fan, and you absolutely, in my mind, could have found a way to keep him, let him play first, have Bryce Harper play right field. I mean, I would have absolutely looked for a way to make it happen. But I understand the direction they went in at the same exact time. But I think Bryce Harper can be a stud at first base. There'll be a learning curve, all right? There'll be some unfortunate, disappointing ground balls, or maybe he doesn't get the proper jump or the proper read right off the bat, and you can tell that he was a half step too slow. There's going to be mistakes, no doubt about it. But sometimes you watch these performances and the way he flashes his leather. How about when he actually returned and played a little bit last year with that foul ball, and he's falling over the railing and the netting's moved? What are we doing, man? I need to see you stay out on the field. I can't be doing that. But that's the way that he's wired to play. And because of that killer mentality, the way that he's approaching being a first baseman, because guess what? This is it. This is the way his trajectory's going. This is where he's going to be in a Phillies uniform for probably the rest of the time. And in his eyes, when he gets his 90-year extension, when he signed until he's 106, he's going to be playing first base. So because of that, I think his killer mentality is just, that's the way he is. He's not going to fail at anything that he does, and he won't even be okay with being serviceable over there. He wants to be great. He probably has the mindset of, I want to be the greatest first baseman to ever live. But could you imagine? But anyway, with the whole Rhys Hoskins thing, we're sort of experiencing it from such a low point because, let's be honest, Rhys wasn't talented defensively, that we watch it differently. But I do believe that he's going to be a stud. Another prediction, I do think Bohm reaches 25 homers. He had, a 7 home run jump last year? So we got to that 20 mark, which is a big step for me in the growth department. Can we get to 25? I think a minimum of 25 is absolutely in play for Bomer, and I'm excited to see that. I really do have high expectations for the kid. There was a time, and if you're big into hockey, I think Morgan Frost is a good example. Morgan Frost, for whatever reason, I can't even put my fingertips on it, honestly, but there were times where he rubbed the fan base the wrong way, and maybe it was because he was projected to be a first-round pick with this high ceiling, didn't really live up to it at times, and half the fan base liked him, half the fan base didn't like him. And with Alec Bohm, I thought in the beginning, I didn't know if he'd be a third baseman every day. I just couldn't imagine him playing that hot corner and being electric. Well, he proved me wrong and has been awesome, but he's won me over is my point. Morgan Frost won me over, and Alec Bohm has won me over, where I love watching him play. I didn't feel that way for a little bit of time there. Not enough power for my liking, inside out swing, awful defensively. Thought he was probably going to have to move across the diamond at some point. Awesome. Just awesome. So that's where I'm at. I got one negative on my predictions, just because I got to be objective. I think we'll probably get annoyed with the center field, Rojas, Marsh, Whit Merrifield maybe, and who else am I? Oh, Pat Shea. I don't know. I don't know. Dave Dombrowski recently spoke, and his message is what a lot of people say. If your 1 through 7 hitters are doing their job, you're probably not going to be bitching about your 9th hitter. I disagree because you need sometimes a role player to be an important guy. You just do. You do. That's where we're at. Sometimes good teams are going to go through some very awkward series. They're going to have some down spots. Bryce Harper might be in an 0 for 14 stretch. Trey Turner might be in a 2 for 22 stretch. Some of these guys might struggle. But what separates you from being a great team and a good team is who can step up when that's happening. And if you're 8th hole, if Brandon Marsh helps you win a few games as an 8-hole hitter when Kyle Schwarber is struggling, that means you are extremely talented all the way through your lineup. That adds an element that other teams don't have.